Hello students, I'm Imkong Lapungan from Department of Anthropology, University of Delhi. Today I'm going to speak on the module Socio-Cultural, Census and Demographic Profile from the paper Research Methods and Fieldwork. Now the learning objectives of the modules are: Number 1, to comprehend what is census and demography and its significance in anthropology. Number 2, to comprehend fieldwork and collection of census data. Number 3, to comprehend demographic analysis through scientific formulas. And finally, to comprehend its significance in compilation of ethnography. Well, the study of population is not only to understand its growth and continuous change, but to understand their socio-cultural and religious profile. In social sciences, the economists concentrate on analyzing the demand, supply, and market to understand its impact on the development of the society. But economic development should be at par with socio-cultural development for building a good civil society. The political scientists concentrate on the development of the state and its institutions. The demographers, who are known as population experts, they collect the census to know the changes that are taking place in a society, that is, birth, death, migration. Further, they also use the census data to understand the socio-cultural framework of that particular society. Since socio-cultural factors play a pivotal role in the society's inclusive development, anthropologists and sociologists are keen to collect household census and other relevant demographic details in fieldwork besides qualitative data. G.B. Murdoch was the founder in application of census in sociocultural profile of the natives through the creation of Human Relations Area File by linking up of modern ethnography and statistics through cross-cultural comparison method. Now, it began compilation in 1937 and completed in 1967, containing the description of more than 240 cultures. Thereafter, many anthropologists started using exhaustive checklists for collection of sociocultural profile of the people. Now, with the advance of technology in computers, the cultural data is being quantified through new software. It is very easy to document the demographic indicators like literacy, age of women at first marriage, fertility, nutritional status, infant mortality, child mortality, knowledge of family planning, anti- and prenatal care, and can get results within short span of time. Besides demographic data, the socio-economic correlates like dependence on the shifting cultivation, uncertainties of food supplies during the lean season, lack of proper health and educational facilities, housing conditions are also useful in understanding the backwardness of the community, and it helps in the execution of livelihood programs for the needy people. Conceptually, census and demography are two different things, but it is very difficult to find result in the absence of either. According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, census is the official process of counting the number of people in a country, city, or town and collecting the information about them. In early 17th century, the word census is originated from the Latin word censere, which means assess, to denote for taxation. Now, in ancient Rome, it is used at first to the registration of citizens and property. However, the census, in its true sense, is being collected since 18th century onwards, especially to help the colonists. Demography refers to the study of population, and it is part of sociology and anthropology. It deals with measuring the size of the population and helps in understanding the growth or the decline of the population in a society. As such, the census and demographic data are interrelated to each other, and they can be extensively used in social sciences in general and in anthropology and sociology in particular. Now, the population pattern of any given society is governed by three factors, and they are mainly births, deaths, and migration. Now, in every society, different factors like family, kinship, marriage, religion, economy, and polity influences the level of births and deaths, as well as migration of population. As such, the demographic data can be collected by carrying out census from the fieldwork. Now, the collection of census is first and the foremost task for the students of anthropology and sociology. In India, the census was collected once in 10 years by the government of India on a wider basis to understand the population structure of the country. Now, it is a mammoth exercise carried out once in every 10 years in large scale, covering each and every corner of the country. Initially, it was not only limited to just collection of statistical figures of the Indian population. The collection of ethnographic information on Indian tribes and castes was also undertaken besides the quantitative information. The 1931 census covered the socio-cultural profile of the tribes in India, including its distribution and movement of population, beliefs and customs, traditions, literacy, and their language pattern. Now let us discuss the tools and techniques for collection of census and demographic profile. Well, the source of collection of census and demographic data is based on fieldwork methods. It is further complemented by the use of archives, registers, and other documentation, such as that provided by the oral history. For collection of socio-economic and cultural profile of the study area and the people, the researcher has to prepare household census schedule at first instances covering the socio-cultural indicators like name, age, sex, marital status, education, religion, caste or tribe, clan or lineage, occupation, etc. Now, after preparation of the schedule, the field or study area should be selected based on the sampling or pilot survey, based on the objectives of the research. Otherwise, it is very difficult to collect the whole universe within a short span of time. Whenever the researcher enters the field, it is mandatory to establish rapport building with the villagers or the respondents. As soon as the researcher completes his or her rapport building, the first and the foremost task is collection of household census by visiting door to door by asking questions randomly to the head of the family or any other knowledgeable person. The data collected through face-to-face interaction with the respondents are needed to be computerized. Thus, collected data should be analyzed by using the following demographic concepts to understand the socio-cultural, economic, and religious profile of the people under study. Now let us see some of the demographic concepts and its analysis. To understand the socio-cultural and demographic profile of a tribe or caste, it is pertinent to know the basic concepts like the crude birth rate, fertility, fecundity, mortality, crude death rate, infant mortality, etc. The crude birth rate is the most common measure of population growth, and it is expressed in terms of live births per year, 1,000 of the population. That is, it is equal to the number of births per year multiplied by 1,000, and divide the whole by the total population. It is known as crude birth rate because it is very general in nature and do not reveal what proportion of population is male or female or even the age distribution. However, if anyone wants to understand the population natural increase, the crude birth rate is required. It is also useful in the overall comparison between the different groups, societies and religions. Now let us see fertility. Fertility refers to the total number of live-born children the average woman has. It is the number of children born to an average woman in a given population during her childbearing years. The specific birth rate is calculated by the formula number of children born per year multiplied by 100,000 divided by the number of women aged 15 to 45 years in the population. Now let us see fecundity. Fecundity refers to the number of children the women are able to have in biological terms. There are variations in fecundity according to the age of puberty and menopause. Generally, fertility rates are always lower than fecundity because social and cultural factors limit the breeding. Now, crude death rate is also known as mortality rate and calculated similar to crude birth rate, that is, the number of deaths per thousand of population every year. So mathematically, we say CDR equals to the number of deaths per year multiplied by 1000 and divide the whole by the total population. Like crude birth rate, the crude death rate also provides a very general index of mortality, that is, the number of deaths in a population. After calculating the natural birth and death rate, now we can understand the growth of population. Here, population growth equals to the growth birth rate minus the growth death rate. However, the specific death rates in general are known through the infant mortality rate. An infant mortality rate is nothing but the number of babies per thousand live births in any year who die before reaching the age of 1. It is equal to the deaths among children below 1 year old multiplied by 1000 and divided by the number of live births in the same year. Declining rates of the infant mortality rate are the chief factors on population explosion as it influences on increasing life expectancy. Further, illness, nutrition, and effect of natural disasters also influence the life expectancy besides the decrease of the infant mortality rate. Now let us discuss age-specific death rate. To understand age-specific deaths, especially during the attack of natural disasters like tsunami and earthquake, floods, droughts, and so on, the total number of deaths for a specific age group per thousand for that age group is calculated, and it is equal to the number of deaths for a specific age group into 1000 divided by the population for that age group. Now, neonatal mortality rate, it is divided into two parts. One is the early neonatal mortality, which covers the death of a live-born baby within the first 7 days of life, and the late neonatal mortality covers the time after 7 days until before 28 days. The sum of these two constitutes the neonatal mortality. Generally, the total number of deaths to live-born infants occurring within the first 27 days of life per number of births within that period is taken while calculating the neonatal mortality rate. This neonatal mortality rate is equal to the number of deaths to live-born infants occurring within the first 27 days of life multiplied by 1000 and divided by the number of births. Now let us see post-neonatal mortality rate. It is the number of resident newborns dying between 28 and 364 days of age in a specified geographical area divided by the number of resident live births for the same geographical area and multiplied by 1000. So this is equal to the number of deaths to live-born infants occurring after the first 27 days of life, but before 1 year of age, multiplied by 1000 and divided by the number of births. Likewise, dependency ratio, marriage rate, divorce rate, literacy rate, age at marriage, etc. are also calculated from the household census data. Thus, analyzed census and demographic data is used to outline the size or the composition of a tribe or caste under study. The fertility trends reveals the trends in family size, the age at marriage, the age of the mother at birth of the children, and it can be combined with projection of mortality and migration trends. Now let us discuss about the significance of census in the collection of ethnographic data. Collection of household census and other demographic information is the primary task of anthropologists at the outset of the fieldwork in the selected study area. The data on socioeconomic and cultural indicators like marriage, age, place of birth, occupation, social category, clan or lineage, mother tongue, religion, education, exhibits the demographic profile of a tribe or caste. Further, it also helps in understanding the status and the backwardness of the community under study. The socio-cultural correlates like the food taboos, supplies during lean season, customs and beliefs, widow remarriages, art and craft, law, etc. reveals the structure and the function of the society in its cultural context. During the colonial period, the British felt it is the utmost importance to understand the social structure of the country, its people, their religious beliefs and racial affiliations, besides their customs and traditions for proper administration of the country. The rulers had intrinsic intention to uncover the caste system in India since they wished to exploit the skills of craftsmen due to their perceived interest in world trade. It prompted them to study various sociocultural factors like the traditional occupations, art and crafts, fairs and festivals of the natives, purely for economic and colonial interest. Fortunately, all the census officials during the British period were trained anthropologists, cum administrators who were assigned the task of documenting the customs and the manners of the people. The studies by Risley, Hutton were the pioneers among the first to write the complete ethnography of the Indian tribes. Thus, the collection of quantitative data in the form of census for collection of sociocultural information was started early in the colonial period. As such, ethnicity, caste or class, and religion, mother tongue, and nationality was the subject for an initial census. Later on, Indian census started collecting the fertility data to understand the child-to-woman ratio in marginal communities. Further data on caste mobility and occupational diversity was collected to understand the M.N. Srinivas concept of Sanskritization through the process of climbing to high status. The detailed census of caste and subcaste and their tangible and intangible cultural heritage aid in establishing the ethnic identity of the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. Damle and Kolhale in 1972 tried to uncover the condition of the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes by collecting information on urbanization, migration, education, prevalence of child marriage, and occupation. The short ethnographies provided in the early phases of census survey are the first systematic effort to provide anthropological and ethnological data on castes and tribes and introduce the lifestyle of many primitive and isolated communities. The ethnographic accounts of the tribes of Mizoram, Northeastern Frontier Agency, Nagaland, and Andaman Islands throw light on various current issues like shifting or slash and burn cultivation, and kinship based on genealogical tables, land tenure system for the first time, besides data on anthropometric measurements and blood groups. The 1931 census data created history by providing the basis of the present racial classification of the people in the subcontinent. The census data on languages and dialect helped in the classification of innumerable languages and dialects and were grouped under different language families and branches. In post-independence, the collection of census data underwent tremendous changes to meet the new requirements of social planning and development. A paradigm shift was seen in census collection from that of meeting administrative needs of the colonial government to that of a national government to work towards socio-economic reconstruction, cultural reconstruction, and for execution of welfare measures. The census and demographic data on socio-economic survey of villages, ethnographic studies on the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, traditional crafts, fairs and festivals are appreciated by planners, administrators, social scientists, and other action groups as economic development is not an isolated phenomenon, but it is socio-cultural one in its holistic perspective. It is imperative to see in what direction the change is coming and at what phase of speed it is, and whether it is desired by the people are the questions to be answered by the anthropologists through the collection of the census data. The socio-cultural aspects could not consider in depth specific social and economic processes, but being more or less synchronous, they provided a cross-cultural comparison. For example, the survey on fairs and festivals could provide the trade across the states, which provide linked to the main market for local products. In India, still fairs and festivals provide the occasional markets for food grains, livestock, and handicrafts from far and near. The integrated nature of the rural society has to be appreciated in the importance of fairs and festivals, which are meeting ground of many religions, cultures, and not merely the markets for sale of commodities and crafts. When nation building was realized, it was necessary to revive many traditional occupations and crafts. Further, the census also provided some insights into the history of organization of markets, which were interlinked with socio-cultural and religious life of the people. The statistical data on socio-cultural issues are utmost important for the planning, the developmental schemes for the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, other backward communities, women, and others for their upliftment. Owing to its significance, a new branch has originated in demography to understand the socio-cultural milieu of the people. and this is known as the anthropological demography. Now, this uses anthropological theory and methods to provide a better understanding of the demographic phenomena in current and past populations. Initially, British anthropologists extensively used census and demographic data for making generalization on kinship. Based on the accounts of the travelers and the adventurers, they collected data and made grand theories on it. Along with the empirical fieldwork, census taking in the local population was one of the basic tools for understanding the family process, such as the household structure, marriage, divorce, and childbearing. Later on, collection of fertility, mortality, urbanization, industrialization, and literacy became a common phenomenon for the anthropologists, as they are closely associated with the socio-cultural factors, since they play an important role in determining the social and the demographic transition. Thus, the role of culture in the analysis of demographic process is at the center of anthropological demography. They seek culturally sound explanations for the observed variation in demographic behavior. Now, to achieve this, anthropologists need to ensure that standard demographic variables such as education or age at marriage are informed by the cultural meaning that this variable assumes in the specific context. For example, school as a socialization agent reinforces in a child the characteristics of honorable conduct taught through specific moral practices. Further, they need to be attentive to the symbolic systems of reference in the population they study, and thus open to the necessity to modify the standard variables or introduce new contextual variables into the behavioral models. Finally, they need to interpret the complexity of the individual motivations that are beyond the local patterns of behavior. Thus, anthropological demography pays much attention to the intersection of global and local forces. This focus is similar to the political economy approach to demographic processes, which aims at analyzing the impact of the economic forces within their cultural and political context and not in opposition to it. Ideally, a multi-level analysis ranging from historical to socio-cultural is the need of the hour to identify the relevant unit of behavioral decisions. One of the challenges for this branch is to proceed beyond the single case studies and promote comparative research designs, which would enhance theory testing and the generalization of these theories. Now let us summarize the module. Now, to understand the socio-cultural profile of the studied population, collection of census and demographic data is mandatory for every researcher with the help of fieldwork methods. After collection of such data, the standard demographic indicators like crude birth rate, fertility, crude mortality rate, infant mortality rate, etc. will be useful in understanding the impact of population transition and its correlation with socio-cultural factors. Besides the traditional demographic methods, each and every social phenomena can be quantified nowadays by using the advanced tools and techniques in social science research. Due to its significance in understanding the structure and function of a society, a new branch has emerged in demography, which is known as the anthropological demography. The new branch emphasizes on demographic consequences of the socio-cultural aspects of reproduction, mate selection, aging, and health state of the population unexplored through stereotype studies. At present, interdisciplinary research and studies are gaining momentum social engineering. Hence, it is the need of the hour to incorporate socio-cultural factors in scientific perspective to insights into the role of culture in understanding the interaction and the interrelation between global and local institutional forces within such processes. That's for the module. Thank you so much for listening.